A subject that we haven't yet really covered is the portrait art for Taranata Kunganyingpo. He was really an important Jonangpa figure in the late 16th century, early 17th century. I think his dates are 1575 to 1635. He was a prolific writer and built a monastery. I think he had funding from King of Tsang province, and built a monastery called Takten Damcholing. It's just below the monastery of Dolpopa, which is due north of Sakya, across a river and over a mountaintop. Then you run into Dolpopa's monastery, and then below that, down by the river of that other valley, then you have Takten Damcholing, next to some very impressive sand dunes. Tibet can have some impressive sand dunes, and these are impressive. Now, Taranata is important mostly because of his writings, and he's a little bit controversial because he was he promoted a view of Buddhist philosophy called emptiness of other. It's a sort of an interpretation of Madhyamaka, the middle way view. Now, Taranata is generally considered to be a monk, and he is almost always depicted in monastic attire, also with a pandita hat. But we do not have any really definitive, authoritative iconographic form that he follows, and I have not yet found a guru yoga ritual text, meditation text for him, which would spell out clearly physical posture and hand position and any attributes such as the sword and book, although sword and book are more commonly found as attributes of Taranata, but also he can be found with the vajra and bell held, the vajra held to the heart, the bell held to the hip. So we really don't, and sometimes he can have an inward, the pandita hat can have the lappets turned inward underneath, so the lappets are actually inside the hat and between the hat, outer hat, and the head. Now, there are some disputed questions in the biography of Taranata that always sort of come to the fore, aside from the fact of his interpretation of Madhyamaka. It's not his interpretation, it's coming from other teachers as well. Shortly after Taranata, all of the Jonangpa monasteries were confiscated by the Gelugpa government of the 17th century, and Jonang was essentially quashed in central Tibet. It only existed in one monastery in the Sakya Autonomous Region, and then it existed in the Zamtang region of Amdo-Ngaba in southern Amdo, northern Kham area of eastern Tibet. But aside from all of that political intrigue, we have some disputed questions about him, about Taranata. The first is his incarnation line. Now, was he truly picked to be the reincarnation of Dolpopa, or did his father pull some strings and have the true Taranata Tulku deposed and have his son, who became the Taranata, have him put in place? Now, was he a monastic or was he a layman? Thirdly, what were Taranata's relations with the fifth Dalai Lama's family, especially with the fifth Dalai Lama's mother? Then, fourthly, what is the place of death of Taranata? Where did he pass away? Because there's many stories that he actually later in life traveled to Mongolia, passed away in Mongolia, and then was reborn as the Jetsun Dampa, the Yeshe Dorje, also known as Zanabazar. So what was his place of death and what was his place of rebirth? So these are really the big questions that have to do with the narrative, the biography, historical biography, let's say, of Taranata. So we'll leave it at that. Press the like button. You can subscribe. You can join HAR on Patreon. You can make a donation on the homepage of Himalayan Art Resources.